Albert Einstein, A Life of Music, Zionism, and Legacy. A soul in tune with the universe, Einstein's love for music. Albert Einstein was not just a revolutionary physicist, he was also a passionate musician. Music flowed through his veins, providing a profound sense of joy and reflection throughout his life. In his later journals, Einstein once wrote, "If I were not a physicist, I would probably be a musician. I often think in music. I live my daydreams in music. I see my life in terms of music. I get most joy in life out of music." This love of music did not bloom immediately. It was nurtured by his mother, who played the piano and hoped that the young Albert would take to the violin. At the tender age of 5, he began his lessons. At that point, however, music was more of a chore than a passion. His mother's hope was not just for him to develop an artistic talent, but also for music to help him assimilate into German culture. Yet for young Einstein, it didn't immediately take root. Everything changed when he turned 13. That year, Einstein discovered the violin sonatas of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and it was like striking a musical chord within his soul. He became enamored with the elegance and complexity of Mozart's compositions. Suddenly, the violin was no longer an obligation. It became a gateway to something greater, an emotional and intellectual refuge. He would later say, "Love is a better teacher than a sense of duty." This philosophy guided not only his approach to music, but also his approach to science and life. By the age of 17, Einstein's connection with music had deepened. During a school examination in Aarau, Switzerland, he played Beethoven's violin sonatas before an examiner. The examiner was astonished, not merely by Einstein's technical skill, but by the emotion and insight with which he played. His performance wasn't just about hitting the right notes. It was about communicating a deep understanding of the music's meaning. Music, for Einstein, was more than an art form. It was an expression of the universe's order and beauty, mirroring his scientific inquiries. Throughout his life, music played a central role. Though he never intended to become a professional musician, he frequently played in chamber ensembles with friends, colleagues, and professional musicians alike. One of his musical companions was Kurt Appelbaum, and Einstein was known to perform for private audiences. Music became woven into his social life as he moved between cities such as Bern, Zurich, and Berlin. His collaborations included performances with Max Planck and his son, where discussions of physics and music blended into a unique intellectual dialogue. Music wasn't just a hobby. It was a shared language that connected him with other minds of his time. There was even a persistent myth that Einstein edited the 1937 edition of the Köchel catalogue, which organized Mozart's works. This, however, was a case of mistaken identity. The catalogue was edited by Alfred Einstein, a scholar of music who might have been distantly related to Albert. Nevertheless, this confusion underscored how deeply the physicist was associated with the world of classical music. In 1931, while conducting research at the California Institute of Technology, Einstein made a notable visit to the Zollner Family Conservatory in Los Angeles. There, he played Beethoven and Mozart's compositions with members of the renowned Zollner Quartet, delighting in the opportunity to share in the joy of performance. Near the end of his life, when the young Juilliard Quartet visited him in Princeton, Einstein picked up his violin once again, impressing them with his remarkable coordination and intonation. Even in his final years, music remained a source of profound fulfillment, harmonizing with his scientific achievements. A complex relationship with Zionism, Einstein's political and social views were as profound and thoughtful as his scientific work. One of the most significant causes in his life was his involvement with Zionism and the establishment of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Although Einstein was not a nationalist by nature, he believed in the importance of a cultural and educational home for the Jewish people. His vision of Zionism was one of intellectual and moral uplift rather than political dominance. In 1921, Chaim Weizmann, then president of the World Zionist Organization, sought Einstein's help in raising funds for a Jewish university in Palestine. Einstein accepted the role enthusiastically, seeing the potential to build an institution that would serve as a beacon of knowledge. He suggested the creation of institutes of agriculture, chemistry, and microbiology to address the region's pressing challenges, such as malaria, which was devastating the local population. In his view, these scientific institutes would combat the diseases and hardships undermining a third of the country's development. Einstein's Zionism was deeply intertwined with his ideals of coexistence and peace. He promoted the establishment of an Oriental Studies Institute, which would offer language courses in both Hebrew and Arabic. His hope was that Jews and Arabs could live alongside one another, fostering mutual understanding through education. However, Einstein was not in favor of creating an independent Jewish state. He feared that such a state could lead to conflict and oppression, and he advocated for peaceful coexistence with the Arab population in Palestine. While the establishment of the State of Israel 1948 was a pivotal moment in Jewish history, Einstein played only a marginal role in the Zionist political movement, focusing instead on educational and humanitarian efforts. After the death of Chaim Weizmann, Israel's first president, in 1952, Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion sought a new figure to fill the largely ceremonial role. Einstein's international renown made him an ideal candidate in the eyes of Israeli leaders, and he was offered the presidency. The offer, presented by Israel's ambassador in Washington, Albert Einstein, was made with deep respect, recognizing Einstein as a symbol of Jewish intellectual and moral integrity. Despite his profound connection to the Jewish people, Einstein declined the offer. In a letter to Eben, he wrote that he was deeply moved, but also saddened and ashamed that he could not accept. At 73, he felt he lacked both the experience and the energy necessary for such a significant responsibility. His decision reflected the humility and self-awareness that characterized his life. A graceful exit, Einstein's final days. By 1955, Einstein's health was failing. On April 17th of that year, he suffered internal bleeding caused by the rupture of an abdominal aortic aneurysm, a condition that had been surgically treated in 1948. Despite his deteriorating condition, Einstein remained focused on his work until the very end. He had been preparing a speech for a television appearance to mark the 7th anniversary of Israel's independence, and he brought the unfinished draft with him to the hospital. Einstein, ever philosophical, refused further surgery. He told his doctors, "I want to go when I want. It is tasteless to prolong life artificially. I have done my share. It is time to go. I will do it elegantly." This final declaration was in keeping with the principles of autonomy and acceptance that had guided him throughout his life. In the early morning hours of April 18, 1955, Albert Einstein passed away at Princeton Hospital at the age of 76. His passing marked the end of an era for both science and humanity. However, his story didn't quite end there. During the autopsy, pathologist Thomas Stoltz Harvey controversially removed Einstein's brain without the permission of his family, hoping that future neuroscience might unlock the secrets of his genius. While some later studies were conducted on Einstein's brain, no definitive answers were found to explain his extraordinary intellect. This act of removing Einstein's brain without consent remains an ethically questionable decision. Einstein's body was cremated in Trenton, New Jersey, and his ashes were scattered in a secret location, in accordance with his wishes for privacy and humility in death. He left behind not only a legacy of scientific discovery, but also his personal archives, library, and intellectual assets, which he bequeathed to the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, a final testament to his lifelong commitment to knowledge and the Jewish people. In 1965, 10 years after his death, physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer gave a memorial lecture at UNESCO headquarters, summing up Einstein's life. He was almost wholly without sophistication and wholly without worldliness. There was always with him a wonderful purity at once childlike and profoundly stubborn. In the end, Einstein's life was a symphony of scientific genius, moral courage, and a deep love of the arts. His legacy, much like the music he cherished, continues to resonate across time, inspiring future generations to explore the cosmos and the human spirit.